Ready? Hi, four-man planners. This is Cindy Lou, take two, with Ellie. From the book, the back of the book, we have our four success stories. And Ellie, I named the Phoenix. Her real name is Ellen, because she had quite a story. Can you give us a brief synopsis of your story, be pre-planned?
Absolutely. I was married for 16 years, and I found out about 5 years ago, it's been now 5 years, that my husband at the time had been experimenting with dating men. And so he had decided and shared with me that he wanted to live a life of homosexuality.
Right.
I was shocked. We were married for 16 years. I had two young kids.
Yeah.
And so that's now been 5 years that I've been separated and divorced.
Okay, great. So that was a big devastating blow. And now you're a single mom, and you discovered you were one of the first people to come to my show in Santa Monica, and you came many times and brought friends. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got there and what that experience was like?
Sure. Actually, it was my best friend that had read about the show, and we decided that we would go. And I remember it as the first time I was able to laugh. I was shocked in July when my life had exploded, and I realized when I was at the show that it was going to be okay.
Yeah.
That it was going to move on.
Yeah, and it's amazing, like, through loss and through betrayal and devastation, there is something that happens to our hearts that it gets a little shell on it, and I do believe that the first time we're able to laugh after that is the first time that we can sort of breathe a sigh of relief and know that we're going to live and be okay, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
I remember seeing your face in the front row, and it was a comfort. And when you came again, it really and brought different groups of girls and kept laughing. And a lot of the show was improvised. Like after the first 15 minutes, frankly, I was not a great one-woman show performer because I hated to be alone. So it was very interactive. So I was very appreciative to have such an enthusiastic audience that you always brought. So at that time, there was no website. It was a self-published version of the book. So you took a book home, right?
Correct.
And then how did you get started doing the plan?
Well, let's see. In July was the explosion of my life, and so I saw you in the fall, and then it was a couple months after that that a friend of mine had set me up with her friend, or an acquaintance. So it was really an acquaintance that set me up with her friend, and he was the first person that went on my mantras at the time, and so that was the beginning of getting my feet wet. And after being married for 16 years, that was huge.
Yeah, it's a big deal. There's a lot of single moms that are doing the plan, and a lot of, career gals. So how did you juggle the time constraints?
Well, I was a single mom, and I had the kids most of the time.
Right,
so
and you said they were pretty young at the time.
Yeah, they were. They were like 7 and 11. So I really had to balance the days that I would get to go out on my dates when their father had them, and maybe on the weekends if I didn't have them at that time. And I remember having to balance life and dating and the kids and juggling it all.
So did the graph and the plan help you with that? Did it make it more, feel more pressure? Or how did it enter in as far as, what...
I think what the most was that I never, before meeting the person I was with for 16 years, I didn't really date a lot of different people. I dated one person at a time. I put all my eggs in that basket. I enjoyed that and moved on. So this was very different. What it did for me is that it made me believe and feel that it was good and okay and right. And I realized how it was helping me. So it helped me not grab onto the one person,
right? Because you weren't ready for that. Yeah, you weren't ready for that.
But in your heart as a girl, and you start thinking, and you think, so for me, it was like, whoa, wait a second. And so then so that's how it really helped me. Knowing that dating multiple people, getting to know them, putting myself out there, that's how it truly helped me. I would have never done that had I not met you and picked up your book.
And we exchanged emails, and I remember at one point, I felt like, oh, she's got her mojo back. And can you talk a little bit about how it sort of brought you back to that place where you realized you were desirable, sexy, had a lot to offer?
Oh, absolutely. I remember there was a time in the very beginning where I felt like all I wanted to do was feel attractive and feel wanted and feel desired. And then I quickly realized that with the individuals that I was meeting and dating, that it was who they were enjoying who I was and who I had always been, and that had never changed. So just because my ex did what he did, I was me and always had been and had a lot to bring.
Right. And so it was, and from that, were you able to have a healthy relationship with your ex, or what is that? How is that now?
Absolutely. I call it cordial and kind. He is still in the children's lives in a large way. I have them most of the time in terms of support, but he is there. We are cordial and kind together and friendly. We haven't quite had the Thanksgiving Day dinner, all the family together yet, but I foresee that in the future.
Oh, good. Yeah.
We will all be around the same table.
That's a big deal. That's a big deal. I mean, my parents never got there, and still to this day.
Right.
So that's impressive.
Yeah.
I recently talked to my mom actually a few years ago, and she had told me how she had cursed my father for 25 years, and I told her it's been 30. So she said, "Oh, I live cursed now." I'm like, "Yeah, how about that?"
Yeah. And there's been ups and downs, but through it all, what I have realized, again, is that who I am and who I've been has been a complete package.
Right.
And through the book and meeting some great quality individuals,
Yes.
I was able to find my heart again and share that with someone else.
So
And
that went on for a while, and I didn't hear from you after, I knew that you had yourself back and you were feeling powerful again, and we didn't talk for a while, and then I saw recently that you were, and you let me know that you were in a relationship. So can you tell us a little bit about how that came about?
Sure. So I was sort of on the plan actively for a year and a half or so. Then I was introduced to another friend who at that point I became monogamous with, and at the time he was, I guess, my 3 1/4. And I was with that person for 2 years. But I realized, although he was a great man and a great package and wonderful, he wasn't the one for me. So I ended that in 2009 and got back on my horse, got my book out, got refreshed, got back online, which is a place where I found some great quality men.
And can you talk a little bit about the sites that you use? Because,
Absolutely. I found Match.com to be the best. I tried many of them, and I found that one to be the best because not only do you get to see the person physically, but you get to learn the most about them, and you can approach them quickly. They can approach you, and you can move on if that's what you need to do.
Right.
So I loved it and found it. Yes, there were some hiccups along the way, but overall, I thought it was, bar none, the best one.
And so here you are then on your second time on the plan. Was it different than your first time?
A little bit. Maybe I was more zeroed in. I knew more of what I needed and wanted and was more clear on what I didn't want. So I realized with my 2-year relationship, there were a few other things that were very important that I hadn't thought were as important. But when I went back out, I once again made sure that I didn't put all my eggs in one basket.
Right.
But it was quickly after that on Match.com that I discovered a man around the block, less than 100 yards from my house. Also on Match.com. And we spoke on the phone, one email, one conversation on the phone, and the rest is history.
Wow. So at that point, how long were you in the plan again?
It was only 3 months.
Wow. Okay, so you really sped up the process and was more focused and...
Yeah, it was. And I knew. I gave him time. He needed time. He was sort of on his own plan, if you will, because his wife had passed away and had been dating one person for a year, and then now he was sort of getting out there and sort of gave him the book so he could read it.
Oh, nice. And so do you think that helped take the pressure off of him and helped you give him the space that he needed?
Absolutely. And he still thanks me to this day. I mean, my friends, I think, thought I was crazy, that I was sort of letting him have what he needed because they felt like he should know. And I said, you know what? If it's meant to be and it's right, he will know and it will come with time. And it did. 4 months later, he was ready to no longer be dating other people and just be.
So at that point, you were able to drop the plan after you met him. You sort of knew he was the one, so you dropped the plan and gave him the space that he needed until he was ready while he dated other people?
Yeah, exactly. And there was actually one point in time right before he told me that he was going to stop dating other people that I decided to sort of maybe go back on the plan. So I pulled it back out, and I did put myself out there and wanted to really make sure
Yeah, sure.
I was feeling. And so with that, he realized, and it was hard for him. He realized at that point that he was ready to stop because he thought, wait a second.
Oh, good. Yeah,
that this is where I need to be. And
so he got to experience that pull, which I think helps men a lot because what I always say, this is a quote from a friend of mine actually, that he said for a lot of men that fear of loss is a greater motivator than hope of gain. It's, you know what I mean, and that's part of why I think the plan works is that instead of hoping to gain something that he isn't sure what that thing is, you know what I mean, he experienced the fear of like, oh, I actually might lose you, right?
Absolutely. When he thought about it and he thought, wait a second, and you're absolutely right. That's exactly what it was. And then that was April of 2010. And we've been together ever since.
I love the pictures of you guys. They're so happy. It just is just a joy to see you. It's like you have this ridiculous secret between the two of you.
Well, we are. And it's funny because I said to him last night as I was thinking about the book, and I said, gosh, I wonder if you were on my mantras, what would I have called you? Like, what would your name have been? And it came to me quickly, and that is the BBE, the best boyfriend ever.
Oh.
He likes to do art with sticks, so I would do a stick figure, and it would be the BBE.
So do you think that you would have found him without the plan? Like, do you think that was something that would have attracted you initially, or what made you know that he was, the right guy for you?
Well, I think that being on the plan and opening myself up to men that I probably wouldn't have opened myself up to because I wouldn't have given them 2 dates, or I wouldn't have gone online as much as I did and found people that I thought weren't the exact person I was looking for. So I think I feel like I would have been on a different path. I don't know what that path would have been, but the timing was such that not only did I have the confidence in myself and believe that I was the complete package, that I then found him and our lives intertwined. And so absolutely the plan helped me get to where I was.
And he was right there. He's around the corner.
He is around the corner, which is crazy. We're going to do a Match.com commercial. They just don't know it yet.
No, I think you should, because what people don't realize, and I say this to my private coachees over and over again, it's like, guess what? He's alive. He's out there. He's looking for you too.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, he found me, actually. He takes credit for finding me on Match. He saw my profile, but didn't contact me. I then said, hey, I saw you. You looked at my profile, but you didn't contact me. So, because I was outside, or he was outside my age range by a year, but that was on paper. I was fine.
Right. And so even though you had what you thought was a set age range around,
yeah, you have to put something.
Yes,
right? You have to put something. So I was completely flexible at that point and said, "Bring it on, let's meet." So we did.
So what advice would you? Because there's so many single moms. There's women in their 40s. What advice can you give women in your category doing the plan?
I would say first, I think, and most important is to take care of yourself. And I found once I took care of myself, health-wise, I got massages every week after what I call my explosion. Because to me, that was important, and I needed to do that. I wanted to stay healthy. I wanted to stay emotionally balanced. There were days I just wanted to stay in my room and cover my head, but I knew I needed to stay emotionally balanced for my children and for myself. Taking care of yourself first, then you're able to be available and out there for other people. And just putting yourself out there. I still to this day talk to my friends and will refer to the 4-man plan, those that went with me and those who didn't, but I share it with them anyway. And for some of them, it's hard to wrap their arms around it.
Sure.
Because it is so different, but it works. It really does. And for the women that I know who throw all their eggs in one basket, this helps you not do that. And to me, that was huge because that's who I was.
It seemed like it just became so much more about you instead of your ex, trying to run away from that situation or trying to like throw yourself into another single man, right?
Right. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it certainly helps you practice and get used to. And I remember having the conversations about when people would ask, "Oh, why did you get divorced?" And, from the first person to the last person, the way in which I delivered it was different because I had that practice and confidence. And so when it got to this person who I'm with now, Jack, I remember telling him, and it was like no big deal.
Yeah, that's great. A lot of women are afraid to expose that their past, and that they have children, and that they're doing the plan. These are basic truths about ourselves, and a lot of women struggle with that. So you think it just got easier and easier with practice?
Oh, absolutely. Easier with practice, with talking about it with girlfriends, with just knowing that it was good for me and okay. Absolutely.
To the point where you gave Jack the book.
I gave him the book. Of course, I think he went back to my chapter first and then read through the book. But no, he did. He looked at it, and it helped. Again, it helped where he was at his point in his life.
Oh, do you think it helped him understand where you were coming from? Do you think it helped his journey? Because there's a lot of men that ask if they can do the plan, and I always say yes if you tell all the women that about the 4-man plan.
Right. That's right.
But how do you think what was his reaction to reading it?
I think it was probably mostly that he understood what I had done, and therefore I was okay with what he was experiencing and doing. I think that was the biggest part, because men are men and they're going to do what they do. And again, he wasn't sleeping around, but he was still wanting to date other people, but I was still part of his life. And he was happy that I was okay with that because he needed that.
He needed it, right. And then so how, I'm guessing that you were waiting for sex, right? You did that. How important was that part of the plan for you?
That was very important. I definitely remember specifically when I had the conversation with him that I wanted to continue to wait, and I was worried because I thought, if this is the man and I'm going to spend the rest of my life with him, then how will this go over? And again, I remember it very well that he said, absolutely, I understand, that's great. And with time, when it was right, it was right. And that too was what was important to me, and that couldn't be any better.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Now I see behind your head there that you have a daughter. How old is your daughter?
My daughter is 12 now.
Okay.
I have a son who's 15.
And so how did your daughter, did she know you were doing the plan? Do you intend on telling her about it at some point? How will you proceed now that you have a daughter?
Yeah, that's a good question. She was so young at the time when I was reading the book, when I went to your show, that I probably didn't talk to her about then. But she knew about my dating they knew about it. I brought someone into their lives when I thought it could be serious and I'd be spending the rest of my life with the person. That was when I brought someone into their lives. And I'm glad I did that. That's my advice, too. I'm glad I didn't bring people sooner. That was for me.
That's great advice.
Well, I would absolutely introduce her to the idea. It's hard to imagine her dating
just yet, yeah. But when they start to get interested in boys, at what point? Because for myself, I think, well, I would have really loved to have had this information, at least introduced to the information when boys started coming into my life. And that was at age 15 for me. I know that it gets younger and younger these days. So how do you think you'll proceed with that?
You know what? I mean, we talk about boyfriends and friends and all that, but you're right. Actually, it'll probably come as a result of having this conversation with you to really talk about it more in terms of, kind of in her world, how it will play out, or, what it would mean to her at her age. But you're right. It is a lot younger. I was thinking more of my son. How could I talk about it with him from his perspective?
Right.
Just, keeping in mind.
I think with boys, and I mean, obviously I have no authority to speak on boys, but I feel like they're less sensitive, you know what I mean, to being influenced by what they're... I mean, they've got the Audi, we've got the innie, you know what I mean?
Right.
So we take on more, you know, and I just
He's got a big heart, though. He's got a very large heart, so I could see him also getting hurt by women. But anyway, absolutely, I definitely could see having a conversation with him. I just wish your show was still playing because I would.
Oh, you're so sweet. Have you? Yeah, you know, I don't know what I'll do with that because it was exhausting. You know, we've worked on maybe doing a TV show or something like that. But for myself, I like having who's that? Who's there? Who's that? Who's in there?
Asking me?
Yeah, who's?
Oh, my daughter. I'm finished up. How could you tell?
You got like, oh.
Well, that's my daughter, and she's off school early today.
Oh, well, how wonderful.
I love her.
Thank you so much, and I hope that, you know, when she's ready, she will be an early planner so she can learn the ways of us wise women.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, and I'm so excited for you and humbled to have had any part in that smile on your face. And you know,
absolutely. Well, and if I haven't thanked you, thank you for your work and what you did, because like I said, it was the first time I smiled. It brought joy to my life, to those around me, and it helped me get to where I am. And I was one of the first people I wanted to tell once I knew that I had found my 3 1/4 was you. So.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And keep me up to date on any of your friends or anybody else too, because I know Patrice, you know, she was the first therapist to sort of take it on as something that she could suggest and use, and now there's a lot of therapists, hypnotherapists, EFT people that are using it as part of their program. So,
that's great.
Yeah. So, all right, well, thank you so much. 4-man planners, it's possible, single moms, in your 40s, whatever, right?
Absolutely.
All right, love you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to stop.